Okay, well, you mentioned Pappy Mason.
Yeah.
And I've done some interviews around Pappy. Did you get to meet Pappy at one point?
No, I met Fat Cat I got permission from witness security to go see him in FCI Marana, which is a jail down in Central Florida, not too far from Tallahassee. And I asked him questions about the Supreme Team, et cetera. And, we just had a kind of a normal conversation about the day and stuff like that. But he couldn't provide me with any current information. He had to talk to me because he was still obligated to fulfill his cooperation agreement from way back when. But I didn't get anything out of it. And then I found out later he was running some kind of criminal enterprise from within the jail using the phones that weren't recorded, the phones that were meant for conversations between you and your attorney. And they threw him out of WITSEC, and he ended up in state prison. That's the last I heard. So.
Okay, and this is Fat Cat you're talking about.
This is Fat Cat, yeah. So, but Pappy Mason never, I wouldn't even go in a room with the guy, in that he is solely responsible for the murder of Eddie Byrne and for no reason whatsoever. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the situation. So from what I understand, I've talked to a few people about this. Pappy Mason hated cops.
Sure.
He had this real, a lot of these guys didn't like cops, but Pappy in particular hated cops. I guess he had been abused by some cops and had like a real grudge against police in general. So at one point, he was locked up. And there was this immigrant guy that was living right there where all the drugs were being sold.
Arjun, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he would always call the police to report drug dealers in front of his building. So at one point, NYPD put a patrol car in front of his house. And in the patrol car was rookie cop Edward Byrne.
Right.
Did you ever know Edward?
I did not. I knew people who did know him. He came from a police family. His brother was an FBI agent, and his father was I think he retired as a lieutenant. The reason they put a car there was also there was death threats made to Arjun, who was kind of acting as a community activist in that he did not want drug sales on his block, and was a concerned citizen and stepped forward. The murder of Eddie Byrne changed narcotics law enforcement citywide after that. And of course, everything had gone wild because of the introduction of crack into, the drug game.
All right. Eddie Byrne was 22 years old.
Yeah.
So he was parked in front of this guy's house. And Pappy Mason basically sent 4 guys to go kill him?
Yeah. Well, there's a story there's a couple of stories that, and I don't know if they're true, but Pappy Mason had gotten a ticket for drinking beer in public or something like a day or two before. And that's really what infuriated him, put him over the edge and was like, let's get even. Some even said that the cop who gave him the ticket might have been Eddie Byrne. I don't know if it's true or not. That actually came from within jail. And it came from, it was either Scott Cobb or one of the other guys on that case who were in that car. But yeah, they was doing it to send a message. They were really out of control that on both sides, including Fat Cat. They had parole officers murdered. They were out of control. And so they ordered the hit on whoever was guarding Arjun's house. And from there, the NYPD obviously responded with extreme force and created a unit called TNT, which was going to be a citywide narcotics unit. And it was going to just devastate and flood neighborhoods where these problems occurred. And so what they essentially did by murdering Eddie Byrne was start this warfare on drugs in New York, and we're ruining it basically for everybody else who were selling drugs without the violence, without the crazy stuff that was going on. And it was a nationwide thing. People, presidents spoke about it and met with the Byrne family, and I think Might have been Bush or
Yeah,
Reagan.
well, when George H.W. Bush was running for president,
Right.
he actually carried Edward Byrne's badge.
Right.
And would pull it out at rallies.
Yeah.
And said, when I become president, I'm going to end, this crack that's running through our streets, and I'm going to shut down the drug business and so forth. So Edward Byrne became a symbol of the war on drugs.
Right. Sure.
Okay.
And so a young kid growing up in Queens with who's on the border and life doesn't know which way they're going to go, good or bad. These guys were like legendary, and that also is reflected in the music and things of the time. And so that always interested me too. And that's why I really was excited about picking that case up.
Well, one of the guys that killed Edward Byrne actually just came home.
Yeah. I think it was Scott Cobb, if I'm not mistaken.
Possibly.
And and I think there's one more due out. I got tons of paperwork on all those guys. It's so hard to remember everyone's names after those years, But yeah, I knew all those players, and it was a terrible thing.
How do they prove that Pappy Mason was the one that put the hit out?
I don't remember exactly how, that case, I was still a rookie cop when that case happened for the most part. So before my time, and I know I've heard the story, but I couldn't accurately tell you at this time. But if you reminded me, I might remember how some of the stuff went down. A guy named Philly Panzarella was a homicide sergeant back then, and he was the guy who really put all those cases together.
Well, you met with Fat Cat, and you actually asked him why Pappy Mason had Edward Byrne killed.
No, we did speak about it, but I didn't want to, I don't like speaking about past cases with people because they're already convicted, and it wasn't my case. So I just said, hey, was more interested in the Supreme Team and Kenneth McGriff and what he might know, what he's up to, and does he know anything about these, murder Inc. guys, that kind of thing. And it was like a shot in the dark. And because I ran around with the feds, I had access to those guys, so why not do it? You never know.